Good afternoon and welcome to the next in our series of Digital Twin Discovery Series webinars. My name's Tom Houston. I work in the Digital Twin Centre looking after all the commercial and industry engagement. My slides are going to be driven by Essen today, so he's like a very expensive Alexa. So if you want to kick on to the next one, Essen, we'll do the agenda. So you only have me for a few minutes. Thankfully for everybody, I don't have a huge amount of insight as to this particular topic, but we have a really couple of really good guests on today, and it's important that we start to showcase some of the companies that are making real moves in this space. So you have me, then we're going to talk about the Digital Twin Centre activities. Ola's going to cover that off. And then we have Kieran from ubloquity to talk about digital twins and product tracking. And I think this is something we're going to do a lot more of. We're now seeing people understanding the basics of digital twins, what the general requirements and benefits are. And I think now we start to look at how we can actually pin things down into particular industries and practical applications for them. And then we'll have a Q&A where Kieran will answer all the difficult questions. And then we'll close up around 2 o'clock. In terms of what our mission is, again, I think I've covered this so many times that the mission is really just to reduce the barriers to entry for organizations who want to use digital twins. That mission has now evolved slightly, I think. I think we now talk more about digital twin technologies rather than digital twins as a binary. And what we say to people is there are organizations who come to us and they have business problems they need resolved. Sometimes they believe the best way to resolve that is with a digital twin. Oftentimes it's not. And sometimes it's just about looking at some of the different aspects of a digital twin, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it is visualization of data, and using some of those digital twin technologies to solve the business problem and move their business forward. Off you go, Essen. Yeah. And the centre, basically, we take all of the different stakeholders and we look at the facilities that we have in the centre, both physical and virtual. So we have a lab, we have a lot of skilled experts. We're a team of people who are looking at the research that's going on worldwide and trying to bring that into primarily the SME market, if I'm being completely honest. We have also just pick the people who are going on to our accelerator program, and they will hear about that in the next week or so. And so again, it's all aspects of the digital twin, how we can actually make use of the facilities that we have to benefit people. There are facilities that are open to pretty much anybody. If you want to come in and use the centre, use the experts, you're free to do that. Just contact myself or Ola or Essen, and we can all kind of get things lined up for you. Again, we have our three industry partners. I'm not going to go into them again, but we've learned a lot from these use cases. There's a lot of really cutting edge uses of digital twins and their different technologies. And we're taking those learnings and we're passing those back into the SME market, which is the real driving force for what we want to do. Yeah, and again, like all these different technologies, I'm not going to go into each of these, but we've gone down the road of hiring experts in each of the different vertical sectors. So rather than just having digital twin generalists, we have people who can actually get into the weeds, whether it's cyber physical asset management, UX and visualization, all of the different aspects. So it means we have people who can really start to look at where the issues that you have and add real value to that, rather than just being a product generalist. And again, this is I think it's the fifth of our webinars now. And again, I think we'll probably see that evolving as well into looking at more organizations and how they're using digital twins to benefit their business. So I would encourage anyone who's doing anything unique or anything, just something that has a really good story to it, we're willing and happy to talk to you and see maybe showcasing what you do. I would also say this is an opportunity for tech companies to talk about some of the products and some of the services that they've done. So again, if you have something interesting and unique that you want to show off, we're happy to speak to you and see about putting you into the webinar series. And that's me. So I'm now going to hand over to Ola, and Ola will tell you all the really important and clever stuff.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm Ola, Senior Innovation Manager here at Digital Catapult and part of the UK Digital Twin Centre team. And as Tom mentioned, so I'll be providing an overview of the opportunities and activities that we have coming up here at the centre. Next slide, please. So first off, let's begin by understanding the technology journey that we're supporting here at the center. So our first step is to demystify. This is very much for companies who are trying to understand digital twins better. We're offering webinars and masterclasses such as these ones to provide insight into the technologies and best practices in adoption. So previous 4 webinar recordings are available on our website if you're curious what we covered off in those. Then demonstrate covers off our offerings for companies who are further down the line and they want to create proof of concepts for an idea and also to validate use cases. As part of this pillar, we're running accelerator programs to provide tangible business and technical support. I'll speak to one that is coming up in further slides. And then also lastly, across Deploy, we have labs and also real-world example environments for more mature companies that we work with. In the coming months, the center will be providing support for technical deployment across technology demonstrations, technology consulting, as well as access to the digital twin lab, lab as a service that we're calling it. So at the heart of this is very much our belief in partnerships and the ecosystem collaborations. So we're actively connecting SMEs, tech vendors, and then industry leaders to encourage knowledge sharing and to unlock new commercial opportunities within the space. And as one of our first touch points in that demystify pillar that I mentioned for organizations is our readiness assessment. So this tool that we've developed helps you identify where you are at in your digital twin journey and also identifies how we as a center can best support you with your next steps. It's a very quick, insightful, and great way to map out potential collaborations with us. So I'll give it a second here before moving on so that you've got the time to scan the QR code. All right, thanks. Yep, we can move on. So through the demonstrate pillar, the second that we provide, we're offering accelerator support to organizations in our ecosystem. The next accelerator that we've got coming up is our research and development focused academic accelerator for UK registered academics and research and tech organizations. This accelerator is R&D focused and is designed to engage academia in solving industry challenges. So these challenges have been identified directly with our industry advisory panel, so very much rooted in true challenges that the industry is experiencing. So this includes leading tier one companies in aerospace, maritime, and defense. So once the challenges are published next month, UK registered academic institutions and research tech organizations will be invited to apply for funding by submitting project proposals. This is very much an opportunity to apply cutting edge research to real world problems with that tangible industry relevance. Throughout the process, the team will be offering office hours throughout the duration of the open call between November through to February, at which point assessment will be conducted and selection will be completed in March. So successful applicants will be onboarded onto the 11-month research and development program that'll be starting in May. More information on that and then also full terms and conditions will be available on our website in coming weeks. And as mentioned, very much an underpinning capability across all of our work here that we're focusing on in the center is the partnerships and collaborations that we believe are key in effective digital twin development and deployment. So we're building out a collaborative network and platform where discussions and networking will be taking place. So throughout this community approach, we will also be sharing relevant resources and updates of things and news that are coming up. And then finally, to promote partnerships, we'll also build out a directory of participants and partners that are interested in exploring the potential of digital twin technologies across the different industries that we work in. So if you're interested in joining this initiative, please register your interest on our website and also do reach out to us. We very much want to speak to as many people as we can to understand how to build out this community better. Wonderful. So that's all from me. I'll now pass it on to Kieran, CEO of ubloquity, to share more about digital twin for product tracking efficiency. Kieran, over to you.
Thanks, Ola. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kieran. I'm the founder of an upstart here in Northern Ireland called ubloquity, and we're on a mission. We're on a mission to give products a voice, and through the Digital Twin Centre, we've got the opportunity to show you today what success looks like. There are others that have gone before us and are currently working in this space. And if you look at Northern Ireland's knowledge economy, it's possibly one of our greatest exports. We have decided to take all of our knowledge and expertise over the years and look at areas where there are massive problems and where digital twins and technology can actually start to deliver value and unlock friction. One of those is the global supply chain. And having done this before in the food supply chain, understand how it can affect others in the area. What we're looking at doing is giving each item a unique digital voice and using that voice all the way along the supply chain to connect the sender to the receiver and everybody in between. And the opportunity there is to use technology, not for technology's sake, but from a behavioral aspect in to take cost out, risk out, friction out, and use new sources of data to drive innovation and better outcomes. And I don't think there's a better way of doing this than actually showing you what it looks like. So what I would like to do is bring something to life. So imagine a physical object or asset, and all we do is we make it a digital twin. So we take all of the attributes for that asset and we put them into a piece of technology called the blockchain. Everybody knows blockchain because it's the underlying technology behind cryptocurrency. But what it is a distributed network. Imagine digital Lego, if you will. Each asset on the chain and each interaction with each asset gets recorded into this immutable distributed ledger. And everything that's on that ledger works on trust. And if you can help companies trade on the trust economy, as I said earlier, you can take out cost, friction, and use this new data set to drive efficiencies, automation, and when layered with AI, start to use that automation in a new world and in a new sense. So what I'm going to do is bring something to life, and this is a shipment of aircraft seats from Northern Ireland, where 33% of the world's aircraft seats are manufactured, all the way across the land bridge and into a small aircraft manufacturing company called Boeing. So using digital twin or IoT, what we take is a little IoT sensor, or in some cases, some of the manufacturers are building RFID actually into the seat itself. There's another company here in Northern Ireland that led this space within the defence sector, and that company is called Kinsetsu. And their K-track system took digital assets and showed them moving at a micro level around the topology or landscape in which they were installed. So if we complement that and take that up to a higher level, what we're doing is actually connecting all of the members of the supply chain. Now, having worked through the scenario of Brexit, we understood that friction actually stops goods being put on shelves and customers without access to goods. You can imagine entering an aircraft and no seats, it wouldn't fly. And for every hour that a commercial aircraft is on the ground, it's about €4,500. So for every time an asset is broken, needs repaired, or is unavailable, those costs soon rack up. So we use a little piece of IoT, place it onto the trailer where the seats are going. So remember, we've got asset level identity, and we're moving up now to the trailer level identity. As soon as that trailer breaks the geofence for the factory, it actually notifies the ship of its arrival. So it'll give an ETA and ATA. Why do we do that? Well, there was a call center in Belfast that was ringing hauliers every 10 minutes. Are you there yet? Are you there yet? And what we found was that if we could give them a vision of what was coming through, that they could deploy those center staff elsewhere. And what that did was it gave the shipping provider the ability to know what was coming in and when, and whether or not it would make that sailing. A benefit that we never set out. It's automatic and notifies the ship of when they're going to go. Two benefits is the ship does not sail with an empty space, and the fines have been reduced because it's not going to make it, so they bump it on to the next sailing. As soon as it breaks the port in Belfast, it actually notifies Liverpool of its ETA and ATA. But not only that, it will tell them what's on board, what's in the trailer, and where it's destined for. So at this stage, we inform Ship Authority, Port Authority, Customs Authority, and anybody else that needs to be informed. The system will let them know what's coming. So much so that in hundreds of thousands of movements across the border, we've had 0 stops, no impact, and therefore no friction. Now, we do not dictate the route that the trailer or the driver takes, because if you remember, these are what they call roll on and roll off. So the tractor unit changes up to and including 6 times. So we take the trailer as the asset, and the elements within that are a bill of materials, each one with their own unique digital twin. So as soon as it breaks the corridor in London, we do exactly the same for Dover. At this stage now, we notify Customs Authority and the Port of Dover that this is coming. For the first time, Dover do not have to put people into Severington. They can actually see inbound traffic, and they know what it is and where it's going, and they hand that over to the EU, to their counterparts in DG Taxud and DG Santé. That is what the UK define as trusted trader. The two shake hands, and the trailer transits through again with 0 friction. Now, ask yourself at this stage, why blockchain? Because it's distributed, because it is shared amongst its actors. They get to see the information in real time. Now, if I go back to the Lego analogy, if I put a red block on, everybody else will see a red block. If I put a green block on, they'll see a green block. And because it's immutable, it cannot be changed. So as soon as it hits Calais, we actually notify Boeing. And Boeing can see its inbound ETA and ATA. Now, for every hour we save them in manufacturing, it equates to 70 man hours or person hours saved, because they're not waiting on product coming in. They know where the assembly is going to, they know they can dispatch it, and it supports just in time. Now, as soon as that data and that trailer and the entity enters into the Boeing distribution center, the system then kicks into life and generates an electronic proof of delivery. And this is where the smarts start to kick in. So behind this, as I've shared with you, is a blockchain architecture that actually connects all of the elements together. The consignor, so the person sending, the person receiving, and everything in between, the port authority, the shipper, the haulier, customs. Everybody gets to see this single version of the truth. And once they see the single version of the truth, we can then start to dive into all of the aspects of that, that transit, including, believe it or not, CO2 that is actually used. Now, we didn't set out to do this, but because of the IoT security seals that they use, it has an accelerometer, a decelerometer, and an altimeter. And whilst it's rudimentary, we can take the weight of the load, the acceleration, the deceleration, and stops, and give it a CO2 value. Now, that's important, and it's important because it's coming into regulation and it's part of scope 3. But for the first time, we have taken data from 9 separate systems and brought it into this single trade window. Why? Because it creates efficiency and it creates the ultimate chain of custody. Now, when we look at the chain of custody, you'll see everything in a linear format. It has its blockchain stamp, and it has its date, time, and location. Now, in sharing all of the information, we provide all of the data in real time. So therefore, it's sealed, it's encrypted at rest, and it's encrypted at transit. So we can, if needs be, operate up to and including top secret. But this is commercial. So what does it mean to the sender? It means that they get their goods through the border using a digital twin faster. What does it mean to the receiver? They can see goods inbound. They know to set staff and resources aside. And everybody in between, we unlock value. Now, for compliance and for customs, They see this as a zero risk transit. And because they're involved as part of this connected ecosystem, this community, and if Northern Ireland is nothing, it is possibly one of the best connected ecosystems in the world. We have 1.2 degrees of separation, but when we collaborate and we work together, we create the biggest possible advantage that we could have in business and in trade. Because, like the centre says, you can go in and try things without fear of loss or how to do things better. When we work together and we collaborate, we can see how Northern Ireland can take its place on the national stage and across the global supply chain. One of the challenges with blockchain is it does not support GDPR, because whenever someone announces the right to be forgotten, whenever you hit the big red button, remember, blockchain encrypts and it keeps information forever. So we anonymize the data. We take the data for individuals as numbers. And the only people that hold those numbers, in this instance, the lorry driver or the driver that's taking the delivery to the port, we take his head unit number, as in the transit from his tackle. We do not use names, and therefore there is no PII stored onto the blockchain. But the beauty of this is that the government can now see this as a risk-free movement. I know this may be hard to see on a small screen, but you can see here the data is registered in real time, and as soon as it moves onto the system, everybody gets to see it, including the MRN, which is the movement record. Now, here's the thing about what we do. So in this instance, they need to see information, but for information they don't need to see, the system actually redacts it. And in that redaction, you can be free to share information without fear of leakage, because it works on a trust mechanism. We don't data mine. We use a protocol called proof of reputation. The more you get correct, the higher your reputational score, and therefore the trust level goes up with it. I do remember a large German car manufacturer who um, got lambasted because of the failures of their products. They think the most important component that they broke in the car was the consumer's trust. Trust is everything in this scenario, and we are helping companies to trade on the trust economy. What we're doing here is looking at behavioral economics and looking at what happens behind the scenes to make sure that one, they can move goods freely. Two, the digital twin concept goes down to an asset, something as small as a component for an aircraft, or an engine for an aircraft, or a seat. It can be, for example, Ed Sheeran's guitars. We do this for Loudon Guitars, and that's where we learned to hone our craft, because Ed got two of his guitars taken off him as he crossed the border because they didn't have the certification needed, because they were using rare earth materials like koa and Brazilian wood. So now all you do is hold your phone to the guitar. It'll tell you who made it, when it was made, what production line it came off, as well as its full bill of materials and certificates. Digital twins is nothing complex. What you're doing is taking an asset, something you can hold, a thing, and you're creating this digital replication of this physical thing and watching as it moves through the supply chain. Now, whilst this service is very valuable, the value is in the data, and the data is worth 40x. Now, imagine all this data traveling across the supply chain. SKUs, product codes, people, companies moving things. That data is worth more than anybody could ever imagine, and we found that out ourselves. Supply chain insurance, supply chain assurance, supply chain analytics, and this risk scoring mechanism to showcase how, when the data is used correctly, it adds so much benefit to a wider economic profile. And in that economic profile, our ability is to take the data that we see and use it as a point of reference to unlock and deliver value. What the centre is doing is providing you with a platform to unlock value right across the globe. don't think of Northern Ireland. I would challenge you to think bigger and wider, because here we have the answer. And because we work as part of this close-knit community, our job is to inspire, innovate, and move faster than ever before. It's my pleasure to share this with you today, and as the team said, I'm more than happy to have any questions or queries answered. I may not know all the answers, but if I don't, I can sure as heck get back to you. I want to take this opportunity to Ola, Tom, Hassan, and everyone else, to thank them for the opportunity to give this a voice and show what a small team is doing in Northern Ireland and the difference that we can make to help others succeed. At this, I'm going to hand you over to Hassan, and thank you for joining the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. Guys, if you guys have any questions for Karen, please start dropping them in the chat. Karen, can I have you back on screen? Um, really insightful presentation. One thing I while we're getting more questions from the audience, I would want to know is about around the challenges. Sure, there was a challenge that you have solved, but creating the product itself, what were the key challenges you yourself encountered in building this technology, especially around product tracking in the UK, and how were you able to address them?
That's an expansive question, Hassan. The biggest problem that we had was we heard the term "we've always done it that way." When we showed folks how they can overcome some of the challenges, we were seeking to address one challenge, and that was to get goods from A to B. But when we started to dive down and work backwards, we found we were answering actually about 12 or 13 challenges that some people didn't know they existed. Data sits in silos, and how we overcame those objections was we took a synthetic demo, and we pulled data from each of the people that we spoke to, and we stitched it together in this platform called the blockchain. And when we did that, the light bulb went on to say, oh, that data is actually very valuable to me. Could I have a piece of that? And somebody said, yes, but that data is also valuable to me. Could I have a piece of that? And what we found out was that the benefits of the service, the more people actually took off the silo data analogy, that they opened up opportunities for themselves, not only to support the frictionless movement of goods, but using that digital twin protocol could actually now look at, okay, if I install this into an aircraft and I make that RFID accessible to an engineer, can I still get that data back as part of this protocol? And the answer was yes.
Mm.
And one of the things that we're looking into now is we didn't realize that if a aircraft seat, takes on extra moisture, it actually can't go into the aircraft because it actually adds weight. So it gets pushed to the side, and therefore there's another impact in we don't have a seat for that aircraft, so therefore it can't fly. So whenever we started to hit the objections, we used the data to go back and present and said, okay, what if we do this? But the biggest objection we overcame was we've always done it this way. But when we showed them there was a different way, all the barriers came down all at once, Hassan.
Mm. One of the questions that we've received is around overall logistics and supply chain business. Like, um, what are the things around operational efficiency through digital technology? Like, what are the foundational steps essentially required for any logistics or supply chain businesses getting into digital technologies? What are the things that they have to make sure that they include from the get-go?
I I revert to how we do this in ubloquity. We start with the end in mind, with the customer, and we ask ourselves the challenge is what matters to them. And if you put the customer at the heart of this and work your way back, you'll understand not only what you do, but what somebody else does and what matters to both of you. For logistics, we had circa 32.5% of cost savings in this program, where 1% is about £2 million. And those percentages were shared across everybody, from the person sending to the person receiving, to the shipper, to the logistics, to customs, to government. All of those combined savings were circa 64 million as part of that program. Looking at the journey, just mark points where you interact with somebody else, and those interactions actually have beyond value. I would say there's a primary value, which is you're there taking a service or a product. Secondary value is the data, but then the third value is frictionless. Fourth is compliance. Fifth is audit, the chain of custody. There's so many things that when you start to challenge the status quo, that you can open up, and it's about unlocking value, Asan, and using those interaction points not only for yourself but for others in the supply chain.
And when we are talking about especially the amount of data that we are dealing with, uh, what's the role you see of data interoperability and integration evolving in a successful deployment of a digital twin across all supply chains?
Sure. One of the things that we look at, so everybody says, why blockchain? It's just a database. Yes, it is, but it's a distributed, immutable database. And whilst data sits in silos, it's useful to one entity or one collection. When you bring that into a shared architecture, or a federated architecture where you can use external data from multiple sets, data belongs to the people that actually own that create it. But if you have a shared data mechanism and you agree to unlock that value, for every 100% of value that's unlocked, we give everybody a percentage back in value. So for every £1 that's created, they get 10 pence back in value. And whenever you start to share data, whether it be anonymized or whether it be structured, and whenever you start to federate data with everyone else, the value is expansive. Now, as data grows, as data correlates with everything else, it's not for us to take that and exploit that data. We provide the foundation on which companies like Palantir or KX take that data up and monetize it. But to create positive behavioral economics, people that actually put that data in deserve to get the value back.
Um, I would request audience, if they have any further questions, please feel free to drop them in the question answers part. And
Can I just make a comment, Essen?
please stop. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, the presentation Kieran did there was really, really good on a number of different levels, but it's probably not what most people would expect as a digital twin. People expect to see a 3D model and different bits and pieces, and it's just a great example of how those digital twin technologies can be put to use and add real value. And so I think, first of all, thanks very much for doing that, Kieran. I think the other side of it is you've talked a lot about the data and the importance of the data. And again, it's whenever we're talking to people coming into the center or contacting us, the data is the big point. We've had a number of people talk to us about wanting to build a digital twin. But there's a lot of work missing at the very start, which is where are they getting the data from? What relevance is that data? And I think everybody starts to see the glossy stuff at the end. Even on the accelerator program, we had a couple of applicants, and we're kind of looking at it going, I see how you could do a digital twin of that, but I'm not really sure the value of doing a digital twin of it. And I think, again, it's one of those things where technology isn't the driver, it's the use of the customer. And again, just to reinforce one of the things that Kieran said very early on, he talked about what's the outcome, what's the bit at the end. And that's the bit that's really, really important. So it's not about technology, it's about where is the company today, where do they want to get to at the end, and then whatever tools you need to use in terms of technology, that's what you apply. It's not about going into something going, we can build you a digital twin. And I think that's where things have evolved with the Digital Twin Center, where we're now looking at the digital twin technologies more and more rather than a binary digital twin. So excellent presentation. Really enjoyed it, Kieran.
Thanks, Tom. I think, Tom, you're right. Emulation for digital twins is fantastic, where you can run simulations. And I think within the defense sector, it's actually very prevalent. Within that, and aerospace as well, what we've done is take a physical asset. So we look at three things: entities, which is business; actors, which is people; and assets, which are things. And when you bind those three together, to answer Mark's question, Mark, this is being used in a lot of different areas. As I say, we recently did this with Loudon Guitars. with AWS, where we took Ed's premium guitars. He had two taken off him as an embargo because they didn't have their CITs. You're looking at Spirit Aerosystems, Boeing, for example, Thomson Aerospace, Ping up at the airport are doing this as well. And there's ongoing discussions within the defence space about how we could support digital twins, so taking that physical asset and making it real. As why blockchain, and Martin, just to answer your question, technologies, it's always cloud first. As I said, there are other companies in Northern Ireland who led the space in IoT, and that was Kinsetsu, Jackie and Joanne, where they took an IoT sensor and built a service on top of that. Ours is complementary. We don't compete in that space, but if you look at IoT or secure IoT, what we're looking at is an encryption data and a back end that uses cloud services. So typically everything's built in Kubernetes, so that we can deploy nodes. Think of a blockchain as this hydra, where nodes are deployed into the space. What the digital twin does, it creates a single version of the truth. And to Tom's point, it shares that information with everybody else. Whenever you start to share that information, that becomes so, so valuable. They say it has a primary value, but it also has a secondary and tertiary value. And we were in a scenario where we were in contract to deliver a service for UK government, where a data company was charging $1 million a month to surface that data for supply chain analytics, all built around the digital twins. But as Tom says, there's two sides to this. You can create a digital twin in emulation, or you can create a digital twin of a physical asset. There is no right or wrong answer. It's up to the business objective. But and Tom, you're 100% right. Don't use digital twin as the lead. What problem are you solving first? And does this fit? And the technologies then become insignificant, really, because you're able to deliver an answer very, very quickly and show value. And it's about being able to unlock that value that's meaningful.
Um, Karen, I think you've answered Martin's questions, I believe, or Mark's. Sorry.
No, I'll answer Mark's now. In
Yeah.
the actual manufacturing process, for example, Mark, so I'll give you an example. Thomson Aerospace are one of the leading aerospace manufacturers, along with Collins and RLC in Northern Ireland. They put a little RFID chip into the arm of onto the arm of the seat, or the shoulder, as it's going through the manufacturing process, so they can see it as they go around the factory. We take that RFID and use it as what we call the Genesis block for the actual seat itself. And we use that Genesis block to create the digital twin. So we take all of its manufacturing data, and it was never designed for this, by the way. We take all of its manufacturing data and we create that, what's called the DPP, or Digital Product Passport. And the EU has defined that it's mandatory for goods based in aluminium, steel, iron, or circuitry to have a digital product passport by 2027. So we're taking a process that's taking production data, and it's the same with Loudon guitars. It's taking production data and it's bonding it into this thing called the blockchain. And once the Genesis block is embedded, everything else after that becomes part of the fabric of that digital twin. Who touched it? Production line it come off, when it was produced, what's its bill of materials, what is its environmental conditions, moisture, heat, orientation, knock. All of that data becomes part of this digital twin, and it becomes so, so valuable.
Awesome. We have another question from Ali Raza, and he says, how did you address the challenge in terms of trusting the technology and other entities in the supply chain to share the data by the organizations? What sort of approaches did you take to tackle this, given given that different organizations have different level of readiness level to embrace this?
That's a great question. So we built this on proof of reputation. It's almost like gamification. Now, like any database, you can write nonsense to the blockchain and it will record it. but we have a little bit of, well, it started off as business intelligence called EVA, Events, Validations, and Alert. And because the blockchain is sitting as a layer, we take data up from multiple systems, ERP, WMS, tracking systems, shop floor data collection, and we bind it into this chain of custody. Through the proof of reputation, it marks your homework. Is it in sequence? It's called a schema, basically. Is it in sequence? Is it coming from the right location, the right person at the right time? And because that owner says that, for example, Hassan put the cover onto a seat in this GPS location at this time, Hassan is the one that gets tagged as that person that did that. So root cause analysis becomes very, very quick. And when things go wrong, it can be a finger pointing exercise, but it's not about technology. This, to Tom's point, it's absolutely not about technology. It's about behavioral economics. If I do this well, what's the value that I can unlock here? And we found we didn't gamify this. Actually, the customer gamified it, to create a league table of top performers who was putting the right data in at the right time. And whenever you start to look at the blockchain, it can ingest data from anything. But it has to come in the right sequence, the right time, the right location, by the right actor. What was business intelligence is now artificial intelligence, and it's running 8 times faster than the BI. So it does a lot of our homework marking for us, but then we need someone to mark our homework. So we asked the consortium to look at the value of this data and unlock it. And they mark our homework, and some of them can be very strict, but it helps us actually hone and refine the system.
Awesome. Thank you. We had another question from Yobber, and um, he I think Tom would be the best person to answer this. And in fact, it's the second part. Karen, you can jump in as well. The question is more generic, which is around what exactly makes a digital twin unique. And Tom, you can answer this, but Karen, your part of the question for this is, it seems more like the use case that you have presented is more around real-time tracking um, rather than a digital twin application. Um, Jober's understanding is that digital twin is something which has feedback loops in both directions, from physical
Mhm,
to digital twin and
mhm.
vice versa. So does the example you presented function this way? So I will let Tom answer the first part of the question, which is more around what exactly makes digital twin, and then you can perhaps tell more about how the two-way tracking is being operational in your project. Tom?
Okay, thanks, Essen. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm going to sound really flippant with this, but we don't care, if I'm being completely honest. I think that there are definitions out there from ISO, there are definitions out there from various government departments of what a digital twin is. And I think the strict definition is it's a two-way cyber physical relationship. We don't get people talking to us about that. That's not what happens. People come to us with business problems and how are you going to meet the business problems. And so whether whether an application actually is properly defined as a strict digital twin or not kind of doesn't really interest us anymore. I think there's certainly research elements, and our tech team are into that type of thing. Our focus is on how we can use the various technologies that are part of the digital twin sector, if you like, to move businesses forward from where they have a problem to where they have a solution. And that, some of the things, the goals that we have as part of the Digital Twin Center is to increase GVA, it's to increase jobs. So we tend not to be prescriptive. If somebody has an application that we feel we can help and we can put them in touch with people who can help where digital twin technologies are being used, then that's what we do. Again, I think that we've had over this past 3, 4 weeks, we've had a number of sort of fairly big organizations, some big government organizations and some commercial organizations talking to us. And what each of those define as a digital twin is actually really different. Some people will define a digital twin. It has to be a 3D model. It has to be completely, interrelated, dynamic, cyber physical relationship, two-way physical relationship. Whereas other people just don't, and they still class it as a digital twin. So we try not to exclude people. I get that there are academic definitions, and as I said, for our research and things like that, we do adhere to those. But when we're talking about commercial companies, it's how can we help and how can we use technologies to move them forward.
Kieran, on your part
Sure.
here,
Um,
how's the two-way communication kind of happening
sure.
or-
This isn't just only live tracking. So we use as I say, we use the RFID in the shoulder of the seat, and that becomes what we call the Genesis block. So just like your phone has a UUID, a universal unique identifiable digit, we create a hash for that digital twin. Now each seat is a digital twin, but the overall load is a digital twin as well that contains all of these seats. The uniqueness is found in the digital fingerprint that we start with. To Tom's point, it really shouldn't or doesn't matter. For 3D modeling, that uniqueness really is something that you wrap around it as a service. But for assets, it's slightly different. We use that digital DNA, that first ID, and create that hash because that will stay with that asset for the rest of its life. A digital twin has positive and constant feedback loops, whether that's passive. So whenever you touch it with your phone and it interacts, whether it's live and it's presenting GPS data, environmental data, it really doesn't matter. Those digital twins, and I'll reiterate what Tom said, there is no right or wrong answer. That digital twin is either a physical asset or a model that you can create. We have brought it to life through things that actually exist. So taking physical assets and creating digital twins for them and modeling attributes on that digital twin, or that load. For example, if that load took a different route, what CO2 could it save? Or is there another beneficial way of adding to that? So that there is quite a bit of, I don't know, ambiguity around what it is. It's what's right for you, what's right for your customer. But all of our assets that we communicate, it's two-way communications. It's not one way, it's both. And I say, well, that's passive or active. It really doesn't matter. We actually did this at the start for cows, as in livestock. Whenever they were walking through a reader, it would automatically do feed to weight conversion ratios for animals that were eating at troughs, and based on their profile, it would put the right weight of food that it had to get. So that cow was a digital twin. So it's the ontology, or the not the ontology, the words that you use um, to best suit the problem that you're trying to solve, but it's about solving problems.
The other comment I would make actually is, and I was very flippant about the definitions of digital twins, but the other thing I should actually say is we rarely see people coming to us at an endpoint. So I think it's part of our role to help them move along that path. So again, we might help them with something that is nowhere near a digital twin. The example I always give is, small manufacturing companies, for example, when they come to us and they talk about what they can do, almost certainly, if this is a 10, 15 person business, what you'll find is they're working out of an industrial unit. They have some sort of accounting system like Sage or Xero, and then almost every other single piece of business that they do is done by spreadsheets. And the first point isn't building a digital twin. The first point is consolidating the data from the spreadsheets and giving the management a dashboard so they have a better view of what's happening. That's not necessarily an endpoint. 2 years down the line, they're going to come back. Their business has changed and it's evolved. So the other thing I would say is we try not to judge in terms of, is this a real digital twin or not. We see it as a point along the road where we'll help people get on that path. And if ultimately it turns into a full-blown cyber physical digital twin, well, that's great, but only if it actually adds value to the business.
Here, here.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more question, Kieran. And it is more around while someone is trying to build a digital twin, especially around product tracking, what are some of the common pitfalls that they have to uh, pitfalls do businesses face when implementing such a solution, and what are practical steps that they can use to avoid these issues?
Um, I think taking as many attributes of the asset as you can, as low down the supply chain as you can from raw materials. I will I'll put this into the DPP. Um, this is a directive that's coming out as part of the EU, which is digital product passports. We've seen this coming, so we have taken as much data from as low down the supply chain as we can, from the raw material all the way through. The lower you can go in the supply chain, the more value you unlock as you start to go through. So, for example, for aerospace, the aluminium, the raw material that's involved has to be of a certain grade and has to come from a certain source. The company is at risk if they take product from a different source, or it's counterfeited, or it's changed in any way. Creating that trust economy where everybody can share the same data set removes all of that friction. The EU have seen this. They've seen the way the market's going, and they're putting the DPPs, or digital product passports, in place. As part of that, take the opportunity to understand as much of the asset attributes as you can. What makes up that asset? And for a physical to digital, having a mirror image of that physical in everything, right down to its bill of materials, is a great way to start. Where I think, first of all, start with the end in mind. What problem do you want to solve? For Brexit, we wanted to solve, take friction out. How can we do that? We share information at the right time with the right people, and a single version of that information. Um, that's what I think. That's what we're answering. Technology, to Tom's point, doesn't matter. It's what you're answering, and then build everything else around that. Hassan, did that answer your question? Oh,
You're
you're
on
on
mute,
mute,
Essa.
Hassan. We've lost him.
Yeah.
My wife's been looking for my mute button for years. Hassan, how did you find
Sorry for that.
that?
I'm just looking at the question and answers. There are no further questions. So I would just like to thank you, Karen, for taking time out and giving
Pleasure.
such an insightful presentation. Also, would like to thank Tom and Ola for their presentations. For our audience, the recording of this session is also going to be present on our social media pages, especially YouTube. And we have our previous sessions also on our YouTube. So if you're interested, go check them out. We have another such webinar coming up sometime end of the next month as well. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, that's it from us for today. Again, thank you so much for everyone for joining today. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.